Hello and welcome to Economic Forum, where we discuss various issues affecting our economy. You can get in touch with us if you want us to discuss some of these issues which you feel are pertinent to our economy in Zimbabwe by calling us on the numbers that are showing on your screen. My name is John Masugu, and today we are going to be discussing savings and credit cooperatives, which are very, very popular, especially in the rural areas. And we've invited into the studio Mbazima, who is an expert in that area. She's an entrepreneur, advisor, and trainer, but she really has established herself in the area of cooperatives. Pearl, welcome.
Thank you, John.
Yes. Are they still there? I've just talked about cooperatives, and they were very popular actually, especially in the early years of independence. And we've even had cooperatives started by former freedom fighters, and I remember we used to visit Simukai Cooperative, which was like a role model, and others under Oxim. But the question is, are they still popular?
They are still popular, John, surprisingly. They are registered under the Ministry of SMEs now, the Ministry of SMEs and Women and Development.
So my other worry was they used to be a ministry, a whole ministry, or a department of cooperatives, and you say they're now under
the Ministry of SMEs. So the most popular cooperatives that you will find in Zimbabwe are like housing cooperatives. But what a lot of people may not recognize is that you can form cooperatives around almost anything. You can form a farming community of cooperatives. You can form a cooperative for money purposes, which is what these savings and credit cooperatives are. And all of them are run under the same ministry. So cooperatives are still very thriving and popular, but mainly centered under the Ministry of SMEs. The biggest ones are the housing ones. And then you have the ones for money, which are called savings and credit cooperatives.
Okay, maybe we can start with the savings and the credit cooperatives. If you can just describe them, what they are and what they do, and why I should go to the savings and credit cooperatives and not go to a bank.
Savings and credit cooperatives, as the name implies, it means that people are from usually in a local community, are coming together to put savings together. And then from that pool of funds, people can then borrow. Ideally, you can borrow for your business purposes, but depending on the objectives of your cooperative, you're allowed to borrow for different things. The reason why these savings and credit cooperatives are so good for communities is, for starters, there's the ease of registration. You get some guidelines if you need them from the ministry on your constitution, which helps you to protect your members. And also because it's something that's local, it's easy to get to. You're not thinking of traveling from Shamva to Harare to get to your branch of the cooperative or community bank. It's right there in your community. The other thing that is good, it is good for, is the fact that when you then approach them and you have a particular problem, you're talking to them in the language that you're conversant with. You don't have to fill out complicated forms or start to put together project proposals or hire consultants. There are people that you know, and people who know you and trust you and know what you do. So it's much easier to access credit for your business growth if you need it.
Maybe while you are there, you've just mentioned trust. And what we've read, what we've heard, are issues to do with lack of trust. Others have an opinion that cooperatives are formed by those leaders who just want to mobilize people, have money, and then at the end of the day, they also end up taking that money and so forth. We've read and heard about people, crying out that their money has been embezzled by the leadership. Now, if you can just instill some confidence in our viewers that is not always the case.
Yes, you are right that it has happened in the past, but I'm sure this is a problem that also exists in some corporate banks too. However, with the cooperatives, the reason why I talk about the element of trust is that it's mainly the social fabric that holds it together. So it's people who know each other generally, or have opportunity to know each other, or have something in common that are forming this cooperative. So when you form your cooperative, what I would say is important for people to do is to go through the constitution when you join as a member, and to make sure that the things that are laid out in there are actually happening. The way the government has set up the cooperatives is that there are checks and balances within the law for cooperatives. The Cooperatives Act will detail what each and every single person in the cooperative's leadership is supposed to be doing. The cooperative is something that belongs to the people. So it doesn't belong to the person who started it. So I can't say it's John's cooperatives. It's by the members, for the members. So
Usually
everyone
that's
is
the case.
responsible.
That's the case, but then if you're then going to form a cooperative, let's say in a community, and you're the one who is well informed, you're the one who is more literate than others, that is where it happens. That's where people end up embezzling funds and so forth. How can that be guarded against?
It can be guarded against by the members making sure that they educate themselves. One development that I've seen which is positive, especially among rural women, is that these people actually do educate themselves. You'd be surprised at how, if you go to a rural community and you start talking about cooperatives, they'll tell you, our treasurer does this. Our chairperson has not called for a meeting, or our secretary was supposed to do this. So within the structures that the government had put in, they have told us that we need to educate our members. So I think that education through those cooperatives has had the impact of seeping through into people, and people now understand what is expected. They know that they're supposed to see the books of accounts. They know that these people are answerable to them. And in many instances now, members do hold their leadership to account. Our government also sends out representatives. If you are registered with the Ministry of SMEs, they can send out a representative at your request to explain to the members what their rights and responsibilities are in the cooperative. So those things help.
So it's an advantage to actually to be registered by the Ministry of Cooperatives, so that you can also get these benefits of checks and balances, and also the training that you are talking about.
Yes, that is definitely a plus. The ministry also gives a certificate, which also gives you credibility. For example, if you want to explain your existence to donors or new members or potential investors, you can actually get a certificate from the ministry that shows that you're known and registered with them.
Pearl, I'll stop you there. We'll continue in the second segment. Yeah. Join us in the second segment of the program Economic Forum. Welcome to the second segment of Economic Forum, where today we're discussing savings and credit cooperatives. We have Pearl Mbazima, who is an expert in that area, who is explaining all the nitty-gritties about cooperatives and also regulation and other things. Pearl, we would want you to go through the stages, of actually forming a cooperative for the benefit of those who would like to form cooperatives, particularly the ones that you mentioned, which are quite viable in the rural communities.
If someone wanted to start a cooperative, the initial stage is to actually just get enough people to start. And the minimum number of people is about 10 or 11 members. So when you want to start a cooperative, you decide what the cooperative's objective is. And then that's your binding clause. That's what brings you together as members, and that's what will bring other members into that cooperative. So when you go to the Ministry of SMEs and you explain that you'd like to register a cooperative, they will help you to go through all the paces, which involve drafting up your constitution. So your constitution is where you as members are saying, this is how we are going to operate. It's almost like the memorandum that is done with companies. You also, at that point of registration, then choose your board. Well, it's called your committee. They will have your chairperson, your vice, your treasurer, your secretary, and another committee member. In the case of SACCOs, they will also help you. The ministry will help you if you need help to then form the subcommittees. There's a loans committee.
Let's go back to SACCOs. Mm-hmm. It's an acronym that stands for?
Savings and Credit Cooperative.
Okay, that's the acronym for Savings and Credit Cooperatives.
Yes,
just
that's
to be
what,
clear about that. Yeah.
yes, that's what
Okay.
the SACCO stands for. So they'll help you to set up your subcommittees, like your loans committee. You need a supervisory committee. You need a technical committee, even the education committee and the membership committee. So all these 5 subcommittees are formed by people from your main committee board, and then they also invite others. They'll also help you to get the right mixture of skills within your committees. So you want, ideally, if you can, you'd want someone with a legal background, a banking background.
But as we discuss these things, that sounds a bit sophisticated. I'm just located somewhere deep down in a rural area where we're involved in agriculture and such thing. And the what you're mentioning here, Pearl, it sounds a bit sophisticated. I would want you to go down, to the ordinary.
Okay. It can sound rather complicated and sophisticated when you're looking at it from the outside. But when you actually get around to the registration process, it's not that difficult. So in a rural
Well, I
setup...
was frightened by the way you said in that setup, someone has got to have a legal background.
Maybe not necessarily a legal background, but an understanding of legalities. This is because it's simple to set something up, but when you run into challenges, you want somebody inside who can interpret. If you don't have someone like that, the ministry has what they call an arbitration board that can help you to resolve any conflicts that arise. So it's best case scenario to have that kind of person inside, but if you don't, then you still have a fallback position with the ministry.
And you have examples of such cooperatives out there that are already thriving, with all these structures.
Yes, there are many of these cooperatives that are thriving. If you're talking about the general cooperatives, you have places like CSO that are operating very well under cooperative structures and have done so for many, many years. And there's also a very good thriving savings and credit cooperative for the teachers. The teachers of Zimbabwe have a very big, one of the biggest SACCOs in the country is the one that's run by the teachers. Another one is by the Harare municipality, also has a SACCO. So the reason why these cooperatives are huge and thriving is that their binding clause is that they are employees of a particular large organization. So their subscriptions and everything come through the payroll. And this has enabled these organizations to grow really huge and to invest in a lot of infrastructure in the country and help their members as well.
Do these cooperatives fully, assist their members to make a living, or is just an extra mural activity that helps them to add on to what they get from employment?
They really, really do help their members in a big way. The developed countries have these SACCOs, they call them credit unions in some other developed lands. And in some countries like Canada, those are the biggest banks that they have. They're actually based on these what we call SACCOs here in Zimbabwe. So the reason why they're so beneficial to members is that flexibility around the accessing of funds. And the fact that they just take a huge number of people who are probably contributing small amounts each, but the resultant large pool is able to financially empower many of its members. Members can start projects, businesses, and these things help supplement their incomes and actually make life better for those people.
But very briefly, some argue that they don't seem to grow, they remain the same over, the membership remain the same over and over a long period of time.
I think that yes, most members are happy to continue in the styles that they are, but there are some members who want to grow and who have grown out of these cooperatives.
Okay.
And that level of success is found everywhere. It's not everyone who's going to be big.
Pierre, I'll stop you there and we'll meet again in the next segment. Join us again in the next segment. Welcome to the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where today we are discussing savings and credit cooperatives and how they contribute to our economic well-being in Zimbabwe. And in the studio, we've invited Mbazima, who is an expert in that area, who is also an entrepreneur, who has been explaining to us about all things that are related to cooperatives, and who has dispelled some of the thoughts that actually cooperatives are no longer a viable venture as we knew them in the early 80s. Like I gave examples of Simkai cooperatives and as well as Oxim. You say they're now taking a different shape. For instance, the housing cooperatives have become very, very popular. Now, cooperatives and the SME Association of Zimbabwe, how do the two work hand in hand? We know they are falling under the same ministry, as it were.
All right, excellent, thank you. So the SME Association of Zimbabwe is a membership-based organization which is focusing on the interests of SMEs. They help SMEs to grow. That's their mandate. They want them to grow into larger cooperatives. So if someone is running an SME and they are interested in growth, you remember you mentioned just before the break about people staying in the same place. Those who are interested in growth become members of this SME Association of Zimbabwe. And they help them through activities like networking, funding, helping them with their growth strategies and things like that. So that is the SME Association of Zimbabwe and what they do. Cooperatives are also registered with the same ministry that the SME Association of Zimbabwe is registered under.
Your own organization, the one where you are very active, is called LASACO. If you could just unpack that acronym and tell us how it is constituted and what you do.
All right. So LASACO stands for ladies. It's registered as La Femme, Savings and Credit Cooperative, which La Femme is French for ladies. It's specifically gender specific to women. It was designed
regardless of their stations in life.
Regardless of their station in life, we actually have a very diverse membership, from some very educated urban women to some very prosperous, also rural women who want to save towards their financial futures. So LASACO is constituted as a cooperative. So it has a committee which has a chairperson, a vice treasurer, secretary, and all the relevant subcommittees that are needed by a cooperative. It's also registered under the Ministry of SMEs, and we've been around since 2016.
Let's look at your main activities, because it sounds like an elite type of organization, because you mentioned that even if you have membership in the urban areas, but when you look out into the rural areas, you said those who are successful in the rural areas. Tell us about that kind of segregation, as it were.
So it's not segregation as such. When I say that they are successful women, I'm not talking about the fact that we are looking for prosperous individuals in any community. But what tends to happen is that the people that gravitate towards such an organization as a savings organization are people who are generally very keen on, are futuristic in their outlook and want to save towards a certain goal. However, that's not to say that they are rich, but it just means that they have a good level of financial discipline that they are applying towards their finances.
So it doesn't matter which sector they are in. They may be in agriculture or any other sector, as long as they show those kind of requirements, you accept them.
Mm-hmm. For example, we have a very good group in Zaka of some ladies who have joined as a group. They are from various constituencies within Zaka, and their interest was in broiler and chicken farming. So they came together as a group that wanted to do that and to use the funding from LASACO to finance their projects and go into these chickens. We ended up not doing broilers because of how sensitive they are. But we ended up doing some birds called saso birds, which are fast growing and produce a lot of meat, and this has really helped that community. The women joined as a group, not as individuals, so the impact has been able to spread wider because there are more people involved in it.
Pierre, you kept on talking about the services that the cooperatives get from the ministry, that the SME ministry, are these diversified, or people have to travel to the capital city or to the cities in order to access all those services that you were mentioning that can be rendered to cooperatives?
So they don't have to travel that far. I've been very impressed with the Ministry of SMEs, because they are found in some of the smallest communities that you can think of, and all their services can be accessed through those offices.
With regards to survival strategies, since things are difficult, in fact, what we have in mind here is even the currency, the dollarization, the multi-currencies and so forth. You save your money today in Zim dollars, RTGS, and then the next day it's eroded. How are they surviving, these cooperatives?
So cooperatives have some very innovative strategies for surviving, from what I've noticed, especially with the savings and credit cooperatives, for example. As long as that cooperative has got a way of roping in the ideas of the membership, usually some good strategies have come up. I've seen communities investing in infrastructure as a way of safeguarding the value of their money. Some have chosen to build hostels or shops that they then let out, and they continue to retain the value of their investments. So when you see that the tide of the economy is changing, you need to be that kind of cooperative that is responsive to what is happening. And that is why the government always encourages us to meet every month as members, where we update each other on these developments and come up with strategies to cope as a group. Strategies that everyone is agreeable upon, of course.
And then financial inclusion, is everyone included, and there's no discrimination to say, no, those at the top and those who are at the bottom don't end up getting anything.
Cooperatives are very good with financial inclusion, because they don't rely on the traditional ways that banks use to identify their clientele. You can be somebody who's never banked before, but you can have a savings and credit cooperative account.
Maybe an advice to those who are skeptic, who thought that this idea of cooperatives is an old-fashioned idea, makopa, amakopa, and so forth, that it's still viable. Just a few words of advice.
There are lots of new cooperatives being registered every day here in Zimbabwe, because people have started to realize what a useful vehicle it is for mobilizing investments. So I would say if you are in a community and you need to mobilize funds for a particular community project, a cooperative is a very good way to go. And the good thing about it is that the support from the government is incredible. So it's definitely worth going into in this modern day and age.
Well, Mbazima, thank you very much for coming on to this program, Economic Forum, where you have been educating us and also reminding us that cooperatives are still viable and they can be established in different sectors of the economy in Zimbabwe. That's our edition of Economic Forum for today, where we're with Mbazima, who is an entrepreneur as well as an expert on cooperatives, and I hope you benefited from all that she imparted in this program. If you'd like to get in touch with us, just do so on the numbers that are showing on your screen. So until next time, this is John Masu.